This is the equivalent to Larry Bird getting traded in his prime, to Michael Jordan getting traded in his prime, to LeBron James getting traded in his prime. I mean, you Magic Johnson getting traded in his prime. You could just keep going down the list of greats. Again, Luka Doncic is 25. You know, his best basketball is ahead of him.
You go, boy.
Virtual episode. You see this beard? You see that beard? Mongo is at an undisclosed location somewhere in New Jersey. I'm in my palatial estate somewhere in New Jersey. This is episode 61 of the U-Goboy podcast coming at you. Yatzee.
Whoa. Hey, this a vibe, nigga. Whoa. Woo. Secure the bag. I need more. Hey, 3P Jordan. Whoa. Woo. I can't keep it on a low. This a whole vibe. I don't need a plug, no cosign. Thinking out loud, that's a gold mine. Mask on, yeah, COVID-19. Baby mama, yeah, looking like Rihanna. Rest in peace to George, rest in peace Brianna. Still kicking like Van Damme with my niggas in Amsterdam.
Mongo. So much to discuss here. Obviously, we're going to preview the Super Bowl. We're obviously going to talk about the trade that has set the sports world on fire, the NBA world on fire. Luka Doncic to the Lakers, Anthony Davis to the Mavericks. We'll kick off with that, and then we'll bring it on home with the with the Super Bowl 59, I believe, preview going on in New Orleans this upcoming Sunday. So, Mongo, where were you when you found out about the trade? I'll get into my origin story. Where were you when you found out that Luka Doncic and Anthony Davis were involved in the biggest trade, obviously, in modern basketball history?
So I'm sitting there, minding my own business, saying to myself, man, I really hope Danny Ainge can do something to take my mind off that mediocre at best Royal Rumble we had just watched. And sure enough, as if wished for, it came through. Now, I was with my wrestling buddies. We had just literally, it was Saturday night. Rumble had just ended maybe about a half hour earlier. And there was, like everybody else, the first feeling was this isn't real. And then obviously you start checking your sources and, everything came through. The word that has been being thrown around a lot is shocking. And I think that's really the best way to describe it. Debating where this falls on the all-time trades list is tough, because in the first 50, 55 years of the NBA's, 75, 80-year history, you had lifelong contracts. Guys got drafted and stayed there for the most part. Some exceptions, but the list is way longer of guys who played for a single team in the first 50 years than the last 30 years. And so it's hard to actually put it on a scale. But in terms of weight, where did this come from? In terms of shocking moments in sports history, not even basketball history, this is really high up there. I mean, this came in the night. It came in on a weekend. Bonus points to the NBA for absolutely stealing wrestling's thunder on this one.
Thanks.
And of course, who else but Danny Ainge, right? We need to get, a shady back alley deal done. Let's call Danny Ainge to be the third party. Of course, he's going to be the one to put the final, ingredients in this. So really, really wild moment.
Yeah, I was coming from a Wizard game. We're still on tour right now, and we're driving back somewhere in Poughkeepsie, New York, or the area, and I'm on my phone, and I see on Twitter, and I see the tweet by Shamgod saying that the trade is finalized. Luka Doncic to the Lakers, Anthony Davis to the Mavs. And then across the Sprinter van, it spread like wildfire. A bunch of the guys didn't believe it. They thought it was cap. They thought it was like complete fabrication. And meanwhile, I'm like holding it up. I'm like, guys, unless ESPN, unless their Twitter account got hacked, which I find very hard to believe in 2025, this is happening. This is real. And it was confirmed over the next few minutes or what so. It spread like wildfire across all the social media platforms that this happened. And, this is the equivalent to Larry Bird getting traded in his prime, to Michael Jordan getting traded in his prime, to LeBron James getting traded in his prime. I mean, you Magic Johnson getting traded in his prime. You could just keep going down the list of greats again, Luka Doncic is 25. His best basketball is ahead of him. And, the way I kind of look at this is, obviously he was in line to sign the Supermax deal. which would have paid him over $300 million with the extension. So you're talking $69 million a year. That's lock, stock, and barrel. Like there's no, there's a salary cap in basketball, but it's fluid, you know.
A nice way to put it.
Yeah. So for the Mavs to move on from him, and again, from all the reports, shout out to Sham on Twitter, the Mavs initiated this. The Mavs came to the Lakers with this. They're like, listen, we want to move Luca. What's up? And the Lakers were just taken back. They're just like, what? Okay, give us a second. Give us a business day or 3 business hours. And they were just like, yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it. You know, so it's like, for the Mavs, my next question, Mongo, is for the Mavs to move on from Luca at 25. Why? Why did they move on from it? Is it the injury history? Is it the conditioning? Is it the weight? You know, it was reported that he was around 270. You know, talk about eating yourself out of the league like a la Eddie Lacy or Zion Williamson, who's trying to eat himself out of the league. Like, why would the Mavericks move off of a generation? There goes that word, generational. Why would they move off of a generational talent at the age of 25 this early in his career? A multiple first-team NBA player and a future Hall of Famer.
This is tough, and I'm going to kind of work backwards to your question in that, excuse me, the one take I don't like that I'm seeing out there is Lakers A+, Mavericks F. There is value here for the Mavericks, which we'll talk about in a minute. But to answer the question, this is a tough question to answer because the best way I can answer it is you got to think from the Mavericks perspective, which makes it a fairly tough question to answer because I'm completely trying to put myself in someone else's shoes here. But if you're the Mavs, a couple things to consider. The first is you had Dirk Nowitzki was the face of your franchise. He is there. The Mount Rushmore of Dallas is one guy. There is no second discussion there. And so to go from Dirk to Luca, you have stayed on the international train now for, close to, a little over 25 years. There was going to be a direct comparison. And by all accounts, Dirk was, always the face that ran the place. He was always corporate gold. And so for Luca to not have that same mentality that Dirk had, if you're inside Dallas, you're very unfairly, but you're comparing him to Dirk every step of the way, not just in terms of how many games has he won, how many All-Star appearances, how many MVP votes, but also who he is as a person and who he is, kind of be Americanizing himself the way Dirk had to. So I do think any of those little things that he had, he was unhappy about, some of the guys who'd been fired earlier in the year, the weight, things of that nature, that gets blown out of proportion. Again, I think unfairly, but if you're in Dallas and you've been there a long time, you're comparing him to the, basically Saint Dirk. And so you're going to take everything with larger grains of salt. The other thing to factor in from Dallas's perspective is that we have watched this team get close but not quite for even, most of the last 10 years, basically since their championship with Dirk, having these very guard-heavy teams where you'd see things like Jason Terry playing the 3. We right now have Clay playing the 3 a lot. And so for Dallas, you're looking at an opportunity here to finally have a true up and down strong starting 5 where AD comes in and, with Gafford right now, when Lively comes back, Lively, AD, whether it be PJ Washington on bigger lineups or Clay, Dinwiddie, Irving, it could be Max Christie in there in the 2. You suddenly have a much deeper, much truer team. And we saw what happened last year when they went out and got Gafford in Washington and started this approach of let's become a complete team. They got to the finals. So they clearly think they've found some sort of, recipe that works. And so I think the combination of the unfair comparisons to Dirk and the, organizational strategy to try and become a more complete team helped lead to this trade. And that's specifically why they went after AD instead of, more picks or even a better player. They wanted someone who completed the team better.
Like the video. We're here, episode 61 of the U-Goboy podcast, live from New Jersey. Somewhere in New Jersey, undisclosed locations. I see what you're saying. Luckily, as a Dallas Cowboy fan, following all Dallas area media, they've been in shambles, to say the least. The 105.3s, the Bobby Belts of the world, the all DLL Sports, DallasCowboys.com. They are equating this to what I said before. This is their guy. This is their franchise guy that they believe was going to lead them to a championship. And yeah, the Mavericks were in the final. They were in the finals last year. Granted, they were outmatched and overmatched and outplayed by a Celtic team that went on to win the championship. But they felt like having Luca gave them their best chance to get back there. They don't feel like adding AD with his injury history, who's battled injuries again this year. And meanwhile, on the flip side, Luca, who's battled injuries, currently is battling injuries right now. And again, the weight, the conditioning, I just really believe that the front office was not willing to make that long-term commitment of the Supermax. This was all about the Supermax. They say it's not all about the money. Sometimes it's all about the money. All right. Like, I really believe that you're not going to tie $69 million a year long-term to a guy that you don't trust is going to approach basketball in the professional mannerisms necessary to have sustained success. I just believe that. I mean, for them to think that AD gives them a better shot, I don't care what the GM is trying to spin, saying that, we felt this is the best chance to give us a championship. Like, you can't say that money didn't play a role. You just can't. You can't, because at the end of the day, sports, professional sports, and money, they're one and the same. They go hand in hand. And a Supermax deal on the horizon, I just don't feel like they were comfortable making that commitment to Luca, considering his history.
Yeah, the fact that this came from the GM by all accounts, and Cuban immediately said, wasn't me. Don't look at me. I'm over here running Shark Tank, and everyone took their hands kind of off of this. It is about the money. I mean, if it's coming from the GM, he's thinking long-term health always. But with that being said, you do have to also factor in Dallas tends to be fairly trendy with how it's handled itself the last 20, 25 years, whether it was Cuban kind of getting out in front of how things were handled in the pandemic, whether it was their commitment to foreign players early on compared to some teams with guys like Dirk. And so up until about 2015 in the NBA, minus the 04 Pistons and the 79 Sonics, and even they had the Wallace boys and Dennis Johnson on the 79, you could make a case the worst best player on an NBA champion might have been Hakeem Olajuwon. I mean, we're talking the greats of all greats. Let that sink in. Maybe Isaiah Thomas. I mean, we're talking the elites. I mean, look at who won the championships, right? Kareem, Magic, Wilt, Russell, Jordan. LeBron wins a bunch. Shaq and Kobe. All the absolute greats. And with all due respect, and this is going to get absolutely reamed out in the comments by your young viewers. I'm sorry, but when you look at the last 5 to 7 years, guys like Jason Tatum, guys like Kawhi Leonard. Listen, they're good. They may get there one day, but they're not those super duper top. They're not the guys who, when you're talking about the 2-3 best, starting fives of all time, are the no brainers. Like, the guys who won like 49 of the first 50 championships. And so when you look at this team as now constructed, listen, I know there's injury history, but AD was already on the top 75 NBA players of all time. As long as Kyrie, as long as there's no personal feelings attached for, how wacky he's been sometimes, he'll be on the top 100 in about 22, 23 years. So you're looking at 2 of the top 100 greats of all time being on that team right now. That's better historically than some of the teams that have won championships the last couple of years, at least as currently as far as history currently constructs it. So you got to look at the current trends in the NBA and say a team with 2, future legends in that sense, that's enough. They are still a contender this year, just from a historical standpoint, when you look at who's been winning the last 5-10 championships in the NBA.
Yeah. Subscribe to the channel. I mean, I look at this move, we'll break down from each team's lens and then we'll keep it moving. For the Lakers, we'll start there. I think this move is more about the future. I don't think this move makes the Lakers the prohibitive favorite in the West. Absolutely not. I mean, they're currently at the 5th spot, I believe. They would be in a matchup with Denver, and taking away AD has them very, very much one and done yet again to the Denver Nuggets. Like, the Denver Nuggets are the San Francisco 49ers to the Lakers being the Dallas Cowboys, 100%. Just a bad matchup in terms of personnel and scheme and coaching. It's just a bad matchup. Now you take away your best, most proven big. Who the hell's going to stop Joker? That's my question. Unless you want to put Luca on Joker, and that's the winning formula. But I think this move for the Lakers is more so about the future. I think LeBron realistically is going to play 2 to 4 more years. I think he's going to continue to cheat Father Time and play a little bit longer. I don't see him playing into his 50s, a la Bill Russell as the player coach of Boston back in the 1920s. I don't see that. I don't see that happening. So I think this is more so when LeBron hangs it up, the Lakers now have their de facto proven star to build around. And knock on wood, if the development of Bronny actually pans out, LeBron has now left the gift for his son. He's like, listen, I'm not here anymore, son. I'll be courtside with your mama, rooting for you. You know, I mean, the jersey and everything, but I can't physically get up and down the court and help you out anymore and protect you. I've left you a gift now. I've left you one of the best players of this era to help you elevate your game. And I don't think Bronny will ever be LeBron or even get in arm's length of his legacy, but at least have a serviceable career as a productive player. I think LeBron and the front office has left Bronny that gift now, if he is in the long-term plans of the Lakers, to build around Luca. Now, over with the Mavericks, I mean, they look at this as win now. They believe the combination and the fact that they made this move without having to give up Lively, without having to give up PJ Washington, with Kyrie still being there. And now you add AD. I feel like the Mavericks have a more well-rounded roster. I feel like the Mavericks are obviously more, as you mentioned earlier, are more ready to compete now. I still don't see them coming out the West. I still think one of the top 2 teams, it's either going to be OKC or Houston, my team, baby, coming out of the West. I just think just those teams are just more complete. They're more dynamic and they're more ready to win now. In the grand scheme of things in the playoffs, in terms of seedings and in terms of matchups, so I think Dallas did this for now. I think the Lakers did this for 3 to 5 years down the road. Because again, Luca is 25 years old. I cannot overstate that enough. I believe his best basketball is ahead of him. I really do believe that if and when he takes his conditioning and his cardio and his weight seriously, it's going to unlock another aspect of his game. I'm not asking him to be first team All NBA, but you got to care about defense on some level. If he could, there are levels to Luka's game that I feel like he hasn't even sniffed yet. And I believe his best basketball is ahead of him. And I believe when we look at this trade in hindsight, 3 to 4 years from now, we'll kind of see where it's going to pay off its the most dividends. Now, will the Mavericks win a championship from this? In my opinion, probably not, but it does give them a better chance, I believe, with AD in that lineup moving forward.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of key things there, and I'll give my breakdown. But two of the weirdest things about this trade are, first of all, as shocking as this is, and I'll keep using that word intentionally, here we are again, right? This is what the 21st century Lakers do. They go out and somehow or another obtain, they either buy or trade for their next shiny toy, right? Even when they were having top 5 draft picks every year, they put them all together to get AD in the first place.
Yeah.
And so, there's a certain familiarity to this thing, even though it's one of the most bizarre moments we've seen, in sports in a very, very long time. And the other thing is, as you alluded to there, listen, if come 2029, one of 2 things has happened. Either 1, Dallas has 1 ring and the Lakers have none, or if 2, somehow that pick that went to Dallas is a top 10 pick. Somehow Luca gets hurt that year and they get an all-star. The NBA, it doesn't take much to have auto wins in a trade, right? 1 ring versus 0 rings. Dallas wins this trade hands down, and Dallas ends up getting a player who outlasts everyone if he's an all-star in 2029. That also. So unfortunately, I know this is a cop-out, but to an extent, this whole grade's one big incomplete until we see what happens. But I do need to quickly say on the Lakers side, I'm with you completely, by the way, in terms of your overall, but be careful there. Jackson Hayes, has just been kind of lingering around on the Laker bench. Lifelong 10, 6, and 1 block per game when he's a starter. Not exactly the best thing on earth, but in a world where you have Doncic and LeBron, 10, 6, and 1 is very useful for your 5th best option on a team with, 2 great players. Secondly, now here's where it gets tricky. Dorian Finney-Smith can play a small 5 and has experience playing with Doncic from their years in Dallas. But here's the problem. This would be a great time to have a great coach there who could recognize that, who could use some small ball lineups, who could get creative. And one of the biggest joke positions in all of sports is the coach of the team LeBron is on, right? Traditionally, that's the guy who just collects a contract, collects a salary to let LeBron do what he wants. And now all of a sudden, you need a coach here. You need somebody who's going to make this gel while Doncic is figuring out not only the court in LA, but LA. There's a chance that he might not adjust to LA all that well, right? So there's going to need some time for adjustment both on and off the court. And the coaching of LA could really play into a factor here. I actually worry about how will they gel and will the coaching work here more than I'm worried. I think they'll be able to get creative at center. Plus, there's already Miles Turner is the hot rumor of the day already. But it looks like they are going to try and figure out how to bring one more big into the equation, while also, like I said, letting Finney-Smith play some small ball five, letting Kleber play some small ball five. Maybe letting Christian Coloco, the rookie there, get a few more minutes and kind of get creative at the five. But I do wonder about what they'll do on the court to try and make it gel a little bit more, while Doncic is kind of getting used to the area.
All right, Mongo.
All right.
It's the time has come. Super Bowl 59. Chiefs Eagles Part 2, as we both adequately predicted was going to be the case. I learned from my mistakes last year and did not pick against Patty Mahomes the entire postseason. We both picked the Eagles to scratch and claw their way to New Orleans, especially when the Lions were one and done. And here we are. What do you expect to see on Sunday?
Almost exactly what we've seen all along. No, listen, I think you're going to see two teams that have a ton of respect for each other. I think you have a team that Andy Reid will not let get out of control on one side, and a team that knows that it can use Saquon Barkley to keep itself in check. And so both have an obvious way of kind of slowing down the game. I think it's going to, listen, it's the Super Bowl. It's one of the funnest days of the year. Get your snacks ready, get your food ready, have a good time with friends. But in terms of quality of football, I think we're going to see a chess match, and it's going to be one of those 10-3 at the half kind of games. I'm already in on the under. I think it's going to be. If they know what they're doing, it's a low under, and it's going to be close. But I'm still in on the under. I do think we see a game that will be within one possession near the end of the game, so you'll get a good ending. Hopefully, no one's claiming foul on anything by the refs at the end. At the end of the day, we're going to have another brotherly shove situation like we did in the Bills-Chiefs game, and hopefully they get it right this time. Just a low-scoring, trench warfare style game that if you're a fan of strategy and a fan of defense, it's for you. But listen, we know Mahomes and we know Saquon can turn a 2-yard play into the house anytime. So it's definitely one you're not going to want to look away from either.
I mentioned this. I went live last week, I believe, just giving a quick breakdown of what I thought was going to take place in this Super Bowl rematch 2 years after the fact. And what I remembered and what we both discussed on the pod when we broke down that Super Bowl, what happened was just how incredible Jalen Hurts played. He would have been the Super Bowl MVP had they won. Obviously, the turnover, the fumble return for a touchdown was huge, was massive. And, it's kind of gone according to script. Every Super Bowl with the Chiefs, they're down 10 points, or they're down 7 points, or they're down 14 or whatever. And back-breaking turnover by the opposition and, off to the races. You look at last year, the muffed punt. You look at obviously the Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl first time around, the fumble return for the touchdown. When you make a mistake against the Chiefs, they punish you in Frank Castle ways, Marvel style, and it's very difficult to recover from. I think that what I also remember from that last time these two teams met, there were no sacks, I believe, on either side. So that's going to be a key stat. It's going to come down to the trenches. It always does, because that's the pure thing about football that we both love so much is you control the line of scrimmage. You typically win the game. coaching gaffes aside and refs aside, you typically control the game. Who's going to get pressure? Who is going to get pressure? Who's going to force the other quarterback into making unforced mistakes? Again, the Eagles, they're at their best when Saquon is at his best. And this entire playoff run, they haven't really had to lean on Jalen. They're going to have to lean on him in this game because I don't see Saquon running wild for 250 yards. I don't see any crazy, ridiculous 60-yard, 70-yard touchdowns. I just don't see it. If it happens, I'll gladly wear egg on my face, but I just don't see Spagnuolo and Chris Jones and those boys allowing him to run buck wild. Because if you go back to last year's Super Bowl, Christian McCaffrey was averaging almost 2 or 3 yards less of his season average in that game. They took him out of the game. He scored his only touchdown on a trick play from the would-be Super Bowl MVP, Juwan Jennings. You know what I mean? So it's like, I just Jalen Hurts. I said this in my live last time I spoke about it. If the Jalen Hurts who showed up in the last meeting, if he shows up again, now that would necessitate Mr. Kellen Moore to not call plays like he's playing Madden 99 for PlayStation 1. Now, if that guy shows up, I feel like the Eagles have a really good chance to win this game. I just don't know if Spagnuolo is going to allow that to take place, but we'll see. What are your thoughts on this game riding really not on Saquon's legs, but Jalen Hurts' right shoulder?
Yeah, I think you have it, and I think it actually that's the vehicle of somebody even more important here. But it is going to, in the box score, it's going to come down to Hurts. Listen, I got to go back one step to really justify my answer here. Listen, we don't have enough time for me to talk about how infuriating Tony Romo was this past weekend. If I hear him call the Bills a two-dimensional team one more time, like that's the most impressive thing on the planet. And listen, I want to give some credit here. I actually got called out on our last video. Trevor Moscato 967, social media user, called me out. He said direct quote from him: Bills have 30 rushing TDs, 30 passing TDs. Never been done before. Know the game, you don't. Hey, thanks, buddy. I like you too. But hey, listen, listen. Honestly, I love being corrected. I love learning from our fans. Please keep it coming. Oh, yeah. Trevor, shout out to you. Well earned. But that's kind of my point. That was the point I made about the Bills last week, and that's the point I'm going to make right here. You can have two dimensions be perfect. That's not enough to beat the Chiefs. You literally can't play perfectly and beat them anyway. We just saw the Bills play about as close as you could, and it didn't matter. You need to have that third dimension, that fourth dimension. You need to be running Philly. You need to be running trick plays. You need to get creative. And unfortunately, what have I said about Philly all year? How have they gotten this far? By making the whole place Nick Sirianni proof, by making the place Kellen Moore proof. The coaching is going to have to actually do something here, and they can't. I'm sorry, they won't, or they will go wrong. It'll show up as a Hurts fumble or a Hurts scramble gone wrong or a Hurts interception, but it'll be from the brainchild of their coaching staff. And when called upon to have to get to that third dimension to beat Kansas City, that's where I think Philadelphia will falter. That's why I think it's going to stay low scoring for a while, because I do think Philly can just rely on its offense and defense to play a pretty decent stalemate. But eventually Philly's going to find itself down 5, down 7, down 9, something like that. They're going to have to get cute. And I don't see this team. This team's definition of cute is Saquon turns a 2-yard run into 70. And I'm with you. Not only do I not see that happening, by definition, that's not cute. It's just a really, really, really good player. I think they're going to find a way to minimize them. They're going to have to get creative. And I don't see this team is giving me no reason to believe it'll work. The same way it didn't even work for Detroit, right? And they have, right? Detroit's been cute all year. They've been throwing to tackles like it's the cool thing to do. And then all of a sudden, when they're season dependent on it, even they couldn't do it. So Philly, a team that's been very, in the trenches, we're just going to run it down your throat. We're going to win the game in the trenches. Now that they're going to need to get cute to beat a team that is just so good at winning these, absolute bloodbaths. I don't see them being able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, subscribe to the channel. I mean, I think that, what we've seen in all of these Chiefs Super Bowl wins during this Mahomes-Jordan era, as I call it, is this is another analogy I gave. He's like an Android computer. It's like the first 3 quarters, and again, I can just go back to last year's Super Bowl. If people want recency bias, I'll do that. All right. So the 49ers did a good job of frustrating the Chiefs offense, really the entire first half, the majority of the game. With that being said, like all great players, he's just taking information. He's just taking notes. What beat him in the first quarter will not beat him in the fourth quarter. Will not even beat him in the third quarter. And it's going to come down to taking possessions away. Now, the Eagles defense, they've been good at that. They've taken the ball away. They took it away in very aggressive fashion against the Washington Commanders, as we both expected in the NFC Championship game. But that was just a bad matchup all around. But the Eagles are going to have to take possessions away with the run and physically get takeaways to win this game. If the Eagles do not get a takeaway, they will not win this game. There's just no chance. There's no chance. If they play this straight chalk, no turnovers, no sacks, best on best, give me the Chiefs 10 times out of 10. Because
Sorry, just to what you just said, but that's the problem. Look at some of the Eagle time of possessions this year. That's not something they consider themselves. And again, maybe they're sitting there doing the math and going exactly what you just said. We need to change something up. But you saw the only real success Washington had complete dominant success they had last week was when they didn't actually give up the ball for the first 9 minutes of the game, right? And so Philly's always been okay saying, hey, listen, you can have it more. We'll be productive when we get it. And so the fact that they're going to have to win the time of possession in this game, easier said than done for them. That's a team that is very okay not winning that. And you're absolutely right. They can't lose that matchup here for sure.
100%. I mean, I broke down this game. The NFC Championship game was lost in the first quarter. All right. The Commanders 18-play drive, they converted, I think, 2 or 3 fourth down conversions. I was able to catch it because I was getting ready to tip off for a Wizard game. And you kick a field goal. The Eagles scored a touchdown on their first play. Their first play. It was, again, one of those classic Saquon Madden on all Madden AI boosted up to the maximum runs where you just can't stop the computer. Like, I've been playing Madden since Sega Genesis. When a computer makes up his mind is going to score, there's nothing you can do. It's just management at that point. I don't see it. We could be very wrong. We could be very wrong. But again, we're going off the numbers. We're going off of history. We're going off the stats. And if this game is late and it's within striking distance for the Chiefs to make a critical drive or a critical play, we talked about this last year. I was watching last year's breakdown of last year's Super Bowl against the Avengers and the Chiefs, and all the critical plays at the quarterback position. There were a number of opportunities for Brock Purdy. I counted about 4 or 5 critical throws, critical decision-making, critical plays. He didn't convert on any of them. Any of them. Maybe one. I'll give him one. The Kittle fourth down conversion. Now, I remember that one. And mind you, Kittle had 2 catches all game. So Spagnuolo had something for him. Seatbelt.
Right.
I don't trust Jalen Hurts. So if both quarterbacks are given a set of 5 critical plays in the fourth quarter to win this game, I trust Hurts to complete 2 of them. If that, I trust Mahomes to convert all 5 of them because that's just what he does. That's what he does. He's made a living off of that. There was a stat, it was nuts. In games requiring a fourth quarter drive in overtime or regulation in the playoffs to win, I think something crazy like Tom Brady's 4-11 in those games, and Drew Brees is 3-6 in those games career wise. Patrick Mahomes is 7-0. The numbers don't lie. This man is inevitable. He's inevitable in close, tight games on the biggest stage. This is just what he does. And it's going to come down to that. And I believe this will be a carbon copy of the last time they met. I really believe that. I believe the Eagles are going to jump out ahead. And then the Eagles, the Chiefs are going to hold serve. All right, now we make our move now. In either the third quarter, mid to late third quarter, into the fourth quarter. and then Sky Moore catches a touchdown pass if he's still on the roster.
No, but I've been saying it since November, right? It was that Black Friday weekend game where he had really mediocre stats, and I said, literally, strip down, take away any long throw, take away any forced throw to a rookie he was trying to build rapport with, and his stats were exactly what you wanted him to be, where basically every 3 throws, he had 2 completions for just about 10 yards. He knows what to do when it's time to do it. It's why I was so down on Detroit, because they couldn't seem to get, they couldn't seem to quit the bad habits when they needed to, right? Kansas City knows, okay, this is exactly what we need to do, and they're going to do it. Now, I will say the Eagles have definitely the Eagles, I feel like, are the most proven team in the last 3 games. I feel like they've had the toughest road, and they're the most battle tested in these playoffs. So you can say they'll put up a pretty decent fight, given that they've taken their punches and are still standing. But to what you just said about the 2 out of 5 for Hurts, you're absolutely right. It could be 4 out of 5. It doesn't matter. You and it's what I said about Buffalo last week. You need to be perfect to stay toe to toe with him. And I don't see Jalen Hurts doing that.
All right. Like the video. We've said our piece. We're gonna wrap here with some rapid fire on the spot. This episode of Rapid Fire on the Spot is brought to you by U-Goboy merch. I'm always rocking the merch.
My secret location, unfortunately, doesn't have any merch. I do want to say one more thing about last week's games, but let's see if it comes up organically in rapid fire. If not, I'm gonna give a closing thought at the end. I need to give. I know we don't do clown or hero of the week around here, but somebody deserves a special place on a special list. I'll say that at the end. Spoiler.
I got you. My first question. This is on the spot. So my first question, Mongo, is who scores the first touchdown of Super Bowl 59?
I say the Chiefs are going to score the first touchdown. I'm not saying who's scoring the first points. Notice that, but I think the Eagles are going to take 3 if they can get them. A little bit different than some of the other teams. Also, I don't know if you saw this, but I think it's DraftKings is doing Taylor Swift themed bets. Did you see that?
No,
so
but I believe
you can bet the 22, which is 22 points will be scored in any quarter. You can bet the mine, which is a stat specific to Kelsey. It's pretty wild, and I'm shocked that her representation will let them do that, because if you're like a 12-year-old girl following this girl, it's a really bad look for her image. But anyway, if you want to have some fun, go check out the Taylor Swift themed bets on, I believe it's DraftKings, not a sponsor. So if I'm wrong on that, sorry.
All right. Gotcha. All right, Mongo, it's on you.
All right. Let's see. How many turnovers does each team have in this game?
I believe the Chiefs are definitely gonna have 1. I don't know if it's gonna be a sack fumble or the annual Mahomes interception, because he loves throwing at least 1 pick in the Super Bowl. I think he's thrown 1 in every Super Bowl that he's appeared in. So I think it'll be a 2-1 advantage for the Chiefs. The Chiefs are gonna have 1. I believe the Eagles are gonna have 2.
Nice.
All right. So a 3-peat for the Chiefs, would that catapult them into the greatest dynasty of all time?
It would put them in the discussion for sure. We're going to hear from all the old timers who remind us that Green Bay won 3 when 2 of them weren't the Super Bowl. And so I think 1 or 2 of them, but so it's technically been done, but in the modern, in 59 years, it hasn't been done, and it's become harder and harder for all sports, for dynasties, with the movement of players. So I think it's really right up there. I mean, we're getting into the discussion with some of the Yankee dynasties. We're getting in there with the 70s Canadians. We're really talking some greats. I think it's a little bit harder in football because so many players change from time to time. It's really the Andy Reid Mahomes dynasty. It's not like some of these other teams where other than left field, the Yankees basically ran the same team out 5 years in a row in the late 90s. It's definitely top 5, top 10 easy. And I'd certainly hear arguments for why it's even higher.
All right. Your turn.
How many kicks, we'll just say kicks, does Jake Elliott miss during the Super Bowl?
Guaranteed 1. Like I wide left or wide right, you can take that to the bank. as a Dallas fan, I'm hoping it's like Scott Norwood-esque. that would probably make me go blackout drinking, like for sure. But his struggles have been, Lord have mercy. The only kicker I can think of that has been more shaky than him has been Moody for the 49ers. It's bad. It's not good.
That's why the faith they have in him, because really, what I would, for the other 31 teams, the follow-up question there would be, do you think a lack of confidence will force their hand at a critical time? But they believe in this dude in a way that no one on earth has any right to be believed in. I'm sorry. It's incredible that they will keep running this guy out with 100% confidence.
Yeah, pride cometh before the fall, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, we can end on your final point, and we can take things on home.
Hey, listen, we love doing our top fives around here, our 5 favorite Super Bowl foods and things of that nature. And so if you haven't checked them out, please check them out. We love you guys for it. That's why we do it. We do it for you.
Yatzee.
I got to change something we did a couple weeks ago. I think you did your 5 favorite Cowboys of all time. I did my 5 favorite Jets. I know he was only there a couple years. Frankie Louvu, you have a permanent place in my heart, buddy. Your antics on the goal line last week, literally having to get yelled at by the referee like a middle school teacher. Buddy, come on home anytime. That was the funnest thing I've seen in a long, long time. Frankie Louvu, I love you, buddy. That was awesome.
Jets legend. Frankie Louvu.
That's right. Former Jet legend.
Oh, man. So yeah, that does it here. Obviously, we're going to be in studio next time, post Super Bowl, to wrap it up. We'll chop it up, obviously, about our team's coaching hires as well as the coaching carousel, which will actually be finished. It's still not finished now. The Saints do not have a coach, but all intents and purposes, it's going to be Kellen Joystick with the Eagles. But episode 60, that'll be episode 62. That will be when I get back from Dominican Republic. Excited about that.
Nice.
Yeah, good times. My birthday's coming up. We love you guys, all your support on the shorts, on the reels. Clips will be available all week. This episode is definitely going to drop sometime this week, but we love you guys so much for tuning in. And that's a beard. I got a beard. The belt is somewhere in this room. We love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Come on back. Peace. That's it.
Whoa. Hey, this a vibe, nigga, whoa. Woo, secure the bag, I need more. Hey, 3P, Jordan, whoa. Woo, I can't keep it on a low. This a whole vibe, I don't need a plug, no cosign. Thinking out loud, that's a gold mine. Mask on, yeah, COVID-19. Baby mama, yeah, looking like Rihanna. Rest in peace to George, rest in peace Brianna. Still kicking like Van Damme, with my niggas in Amsterdam.
You go, boy.
Yatzee.